Indiana Soybean Alliance and the Indiana Corn Marketing Council joined recently with the Ports of Indiana to host the first ever Indiana Container Shipping Conference. Governor Eric Holcomb kicked off this event. It happened this week as business, agriculture, and transportation leaders discussed ways to develop new container ports to grow agriculture exports and expand global trade. Container shipping capacity has been identified as key for Indiana's economic and agricultural growth, so Indiana Soybean Alliance and Indiana Corn Marketing Council CEO Courtney Kingery joins us this morning to tell us more and why this is important for corn and soybean growers. Courtney, first of all, thanks a lot. There are a lot of heavy hitters on board with this effort. Pretty impressive list. The Indiana Economic Development Corps, the Agribusiness Council, Indiana Railroad, the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, the Indiana Farm Bureau, and the list goes on and on. I guess the first question on the minds of our farmers, anyway, has to be, why have shipping containers become such a pronounced issue for Indiana agriculture?
Rob, thanks for having me on. This has been a great conference. And as you said, a lot of heavy hitters and really bringing agriculture together with partners up and down the supply chain and partners we don't typically work with in a lot of areas. And the reason containerized shipments is becoming a bigger deal is because we continue to see the global competition from Brazil and Argentina. And we've got to continue to find ways to differentiate U.S. agricultural products. And one of the best ways to do that is through these value-added specialty crops. Indiana is uniquely positioned to take advantage of that. But we're just not in that place right now. 2/3 of global trade is containerized. And right now, Illinois and Ohio have half of that market.
Wow.
So Indiana's missing out on an opportunity, and Indiana agriculture's missing out for us to have a piece of that. There's a farmer in southern Indiana. He's a first-generation farmer. And how he has grown his operation, he said he's got to differentiate himself. And so all the soybeans that he grows are specialty soybeans. By being able to grow that, he's meeting a need in the marketplace. He's able to secure some premiums. So his non-GMO food grade soybeans go into containers and they get shipped to Asia for tofu and tempeh, to Japan, Korea. So those customers value the high quality and sustainably grown soybeans that he grows. So he's able to get some of those premiums to help make his operation more profitable. And that's how he's differentiated himself.
Yeah. So does this factor into things like high oleic beans?
Exactly. So high oleic soybeans, non-GMO soybeans, but also on the corn side as well. Waxy corn, high amylose corn, some of the specialty corn out there, and DDGs. We had some of our commercial partners, some of the ethanol plants were part of this container shipping, and they were talking about how they're looking for opportunities to grow their DDGs. We also had hardwoods represented. Hardwoods are shipped in containers overseas. We don't often think about that. A lot of the hardwoods from Indiana goes to Asia. Say that Indiana's not just easy to do business with from a regulatory perspective, but they like doing business with us.
We are likable here in the state of Indiana. What's not to like about us?
Absolutely.
So, I find it interesting because there has been a lot of conversation recently and maybe dissatisfaction to some degree with the administration not being more aggressive, shall we say, with regard to making international trade connections. So I'm looking at this and saying, here we are in Indiana and we're trying to be as proactive as possible in this. Is this something that is kind of the new normal?
Indiana Corn Marketing Council at Indiana Soybean Alliance continues to be laser focused in returning value back to the farmers of Indiana. So it's an area that we continue to work in. We've got a group of farmers right now on a trade team to Korea promoting Indiana soybean and Indiana soybean oil. So market development and promoting Indiana agricultural products is incredibly important. There's one of the farmers who's also on the United Soybean Board. They are doing a campaign in Korea right now in which he is the face of U.S. soybean farmers. His face as the American farmer are on buses, billboards, all over Korea right now promoting U.S. soybeans. So when you look at the soybean and the corn balance sheet, growing those exports, that's the place where we can really have an impact when we all come together and move the pile
Yeah.
to those export
Yeah.
markets.
Your checkoff dollars hard at work. There it is. What comes next for Indiana's container shipping project?
Yeah, continuing to work with those partners across the supply chain. We're going to be pulling some task force together. This was the big event to kick off this effort, and this comes on the heels of the announcements by the Ports of Indiana to launch their container initiative. So the Ports of Indiana is going to be pulling together these task force. They're going to be going for grants, some federal grants, to be able to implement some of the infrastructure. And we're pulling together what I'm calling a coalition of the willing. The work is done by the people who are willing to show up and roll up our sleeves and get it done. So if any of your listeners have an interest in learning more about it, getting involved, they can go to our website, find my contact information. Love to talk to any of the farmers that are listening about what they can do to get involved with this.
Courtney Kingery, CEO of the Indiana Soybean Alliance and the Indiana Corn Marketing Council. Thanks so much for your time. Boy, this is an exciting project.
Thank you very much. I'd love to chat with you as this continues to develop and move forward.
Podcasts by Federated Media.